Hello. How's everybody today? When you come in, the way this is set up is you're muted when you come in, but on the bottom of the screen, there's a little option to raise your hand. And what that'll do is on my video projection, I'll put a little blue icon of a hand coming up. So if you have a question, I'll unmute you. But you also have the capability of unmuting yourself if you want to talk. The only reason I started off with everybody muted is so that people aren't talking over each other and you can kind of focus on me rather than the background noises. And same for me, so I can focus on what I'm talking about rather than hearing all the background noises going on in your house and everything. So anytime you have something to say, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand there. Okay. I take it nobody has anything to say then. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. I'm glad to see you guys are here. I'm going to continue on kind of from where I left off yesterday, which was choosing the career that's right for you. And we'd kind of gotten down through choosing that career. And so once you've kind of chosen it, or how do you know that you've chosen the right career is kind of what I want to talk about. And so now that you have an inventory of what careers you think you'd like to pursue, how do you narrow down your choice? And the first thing you need to do is get as much networking and experience as you possibly can in your possible career field choices. What I mean by network is linking up with professionals and others that share or are involved in areas that carry a certain interest for you. And you're already required to do some networking through Mrs. Parker's work ethics class, where you have to go job shadow. Job shadowing is a form of networking. It's a way of you to determine, okay, is this career really right for me? And what's funny is I've had a couple students within the past 2 years who, I really want to go in healthcare. I want to be a nurse. And then they go and shadow a nurse, and the first time they saw blood, they felt queasy. And it's like, okay, well, maybe nursing isn't the career for me. And that's part of this. Part of this networking is not to justify your career choice, but to figure out, is this really what you want to do? So how do you network? Well, first off, make contacts. If you want to be a lawyer, are there any lawyers in your family you could talk to? Do any go to your church? Does your family have a lawyer who might be willing to sit down and chat with you about it? Talk to them. Ask questions about your career and indicate your interest in the career. They may be able to help you. Maybe they'll offer you job shadowing opportunities. Maybe they refer you to someone who maybe has an internship in their office or just a volunteer opportunity in that field that would get you that experience, so they could direct you as to where to go. A lot of professionals enjoy sharing, and it makes them feel good and proud to be recognized as a mentor or resource in their field. And I know as teenagers, and I was there too. I've been there, done that. My kids are still going through it. One of them's 20 something now. Where they're scared to talk to adults. Heck, these adults want to talk to you. That most of them, 90% of them, want to do good things for you. So if you're really interested, get over that fear and go talk. What's the worst thing that can happen? And this goes to dating too. The worst thing that can happen is they say no, and then where are you? You're in the same place where you were when you started. So it really doesn't. If you don't, you're not really losing anything by asking. So this does require that you have to give up a certain amount of shyness that the young tend to have. And there's never any harm in inquiring and asking questions. If they say no, be polite, thank them anyway. Try to find someone else who's willing to see the opportunity for themselves and assisting, like a person like you who, when they are successful, may be able to help them as well and return the favor. And that's a big part of networking, is that it is an exchange of things, really. They're helping you out when you're young and up and coming, and later on, maybe they need someone like you in their firm and you're more prone to work for them. Or maybe they need a professional favor, a recommendation or something, and you're there for them as well. And that's really what a lot of the work world is, this exchange of favors. So the second thing I recommend is get a job. If not in the field that you're interested in career-wise in, then somewhere near the field. And a lot of things can be near the field. And be willing to accept extremely low pay to start off, or possibly even no pay for a time in order to gain the experience. That experience is invaluable, and it will push you above other people who only have the education without the experience. There is no replacement for experience and the knowledge you gain for it. That's building up your human capital there. So offer yourself as an intern, an unpaid employee, there just to gain experience. And don't be afraid to be the office gopher. I've seen too many people, young people particularly, who, oh, that work's beneath me. I don't want to do that. And so they sit around unemployed while everybody else is gaining experience by doing these little things and building themselves up. Nobody starts at the top of things here. So when people recognize your enthusiasm and your work ethic, they'll begin to trust you with greater responsibility and more knowledge in the field, and you'll gain even more of those things. Keep your mouth shut. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like, you're always gabbing, but I mean, sometimes sitting in a meeting, there's, ooh, we should do this. Don't do that at first. That's one of the things they actually taught you in NCO school in the Army, was your first few weeks at a post, keep your mouth shut and your ears open. Listen. Do as you're told. Eventually you'll show that you can handle more and you'll earn the right to do so. But if you go in there acting like a know-it-all on the first day, how do you know they didn't already do this? It didn't work out. And there were other things that you didn't consider. It's better to learn. Every place has its own culture, its own mix-up of knowledge and experiences. It's better to learn the culture and see where you fit in rather than jump in there and pretend like I know everything already. Learn the culture, fit in there first. So a good place to begin to research the career fields you might be interested in is the United States Department of Labor's website, where the Occupational Information Network is located. And it includes information on skills, abilities, interests associated with occupations. The Occupational Outlook Handbook, which contains detailed information on over 250 occupations and is revised every 2 years. It tells you things like what's the median salary for that, what geographic location is best suited for a career in that field or is hiring more people, what is the outlook for salary growth or projected employment opportunities in the next 10, 20 years. And it's revised every 2 years. And the Occupational Outlook Quarterly, which provides the similar information, is updated every 4 years. And that's where they're located on that Occupational Information Network on the United States Department of Labor's website. Attend job fairs. I apologize, we probably are going to end up canceling the one we have April 22nd. And if we do have it, I'm sure it'll be fairly limited. But if you get a chance to go to a job fair, go. There is no, you're not making a lifetime commitment by going to a job fair. You're not even making a day commitment. You're talking to these people. You're networking basically with them. And it's a good networking and research opportunity to go to these things. Ask questions. Lots and lots of questions. The more questions you ask, the more information is given to you that you can make a good determination and have a concise plan for yourself. So ask questions such as, what are the specific occupations within this career field? Are job opportunities expected to grow, shrink, or remain steady in the future? Which geographic areas have the most job opportunities? What education or training is required for specific occupations? What level of pay can be expected? What is a typical workday like for a person in this occupation? What are some possible paths of advancement within this field? You might be surprised, that you think I have to do the X, Y, Z to get here, when in fact, you might be able to do EGM to get somewhere where you want to be. And it's a path you didn't even consider that you might actually find more enjoyable than the traditional path that you thought you had to take. So ask these kinds of questions. Go speak with Mrs. Fraley. She's, the guidance counselor is not just there for your emotional benefit. She's got all kinds of career preparedness things down there that she would be thrilled to discuss with you. Or go to the state's Professional Development Center or Job Resource Center. They have libraries of books and magazines and access to computer databases on information on thousands of careers that are updated all the time. Most importantly, be open to opportunity and take advantage of it. Whenever it comes, Thomas Edison had this great quote that most people miss opportunity because it's wearing overalls and is disguised as work. You'd never know when an opportunity is going to come up. And if you're there willing to do it, if the boss goes, hey man, I need someone messed up the bathroom in the restaurant here. I need someone to go clean the bathroom. Don't be the guy who sits there and goes, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. That's pretty disgusting, when you're being paid to do it. Because if you do that, you're willing to do the hard work. That's an opportunity for you to demonstrate, okay, I'm willing to do the rather unpleasant work when I'm being paid. And the boss might recognize that and go, listen, I got another task for you. Since you're a hard worker, why don't you help me with these books here? And if you want to be an accountant, then learning how to do that, how to reconcile a cash drawer or something like that, invaluable experience that you can then put on a resume for later. So always be open to opportunity there. This, you can ignore that, but if you are, as an assignment, but if you are interested, you can follow this link right here. And the Illinois State University has a nice little career office there where they give all these assessments for people to do, where you can go and take different personality assessment, job interest assessment, things like that. And they'll recommend different career paths for you. If you're interested in doing that, I would highly recommend following this link here. Okay, so I'm going to see, did you guys have any questions in the meantime regarding this? I don't see anybody's hands up, so we're good there. Okay, then I am going to go to the next set of slides, and that is how to apply for a job. Oops. Okay, so a good first place, and this is kind of antiquated, and a lot of people aren't advertising in the newspapers anymore, unless you're in bigger urban areas. There might be a few in there, but nowadays people are going on websites like Indeed or Monster or Find a Job or Careers by Lincoln. There's several of them out there. A lot of them are replicates, and so you don't necessarily have to go to every one to look, but there are a lot of them out there where you can start looking for that entry-level job without having to go to the newspaper. So I kind of maybe need to update this slide a little bit, but the help wanted section of the newspaper, and newspapers are losing readership and advertising as the electronic media begins to dominate. The closer you get to desiring an entry-level job, the more likely you'll be able to find openings in the newspaper. After that, the next level of jobs can be found utilizing job search engines such as I already mentioned, monster.com and your town or locale helpwanted.com. For example, I think there's a Terre Haute helpwanted.com website. More professional positions are not usually advertised in these places. So if you're looking to be a lawyer in a law firm or something like that, you're going to want to look in professional journals, publications, professional websites, professional organizations like the American Bar Association, college and university career centers. Those are where more professional positions are going to be listed. So just because you don't see a help wanted ad for a teacher who teaches English in the newspaper or on Monster or Terre Haute Help Wanted or something like that, doesn't mean those jobs aren't out there. They're just not advertised in those places. They specialize where the advertising is to get the people who are actually qualified and licensed to do that particular job. Oftentimes, excuse me, employers and companies don't even post the professional positions they're hiring for. They prefer to rely on their networks of people to identify talent and then recruit it. And how do they network? Job fairs. They'll go to job fairs, and people who come up and are interested in, usually will provide them with a resume there, and they keep those resumes on file. And as they go through, okay, we need someone to fill this position, they go through those resumes and go, okay, here's the person that we talked to at the job fair that might be a good candidate, and they'll contact you. Unsolicited resumes. If this company's just the perfect fit for me, I would love to work there, send in your resume with a cover letter that says, hey, I realize you might not be looking for anybody right now, but if you would keep my resume on file, I'm really interested in working here. Contacts within universities and colleges. I'll give you a hint. You might take some big seminar courses. I took a geography course that had 300 people in it. But you know what I did every class? I went down and said hi to the professor. I talked to him. He knew my name out of everybody else there, just because I tried to build a relationship with him. And that's a big piece of advice I can give to you going forward into college. Build a relationship with your instructors, no matter what the size of the class is, because those instructors are the ones who are the experts in the field academically that all these companies are referring to for things. And they might contact your professor and say, listen, do you have any really bright students who might fit this? And if you have that relationship with your professor or instructor, your name's going to be in their mind, and they'll be able to help you with this. The second benefit of building that relationship in a class of 300, how closely do you think he was grading everything? And so if you're someone who doesn't know out of the 300, you're just a name in the book, and he looks at, well, that's just wrong. Whereas with me, if you looked at it, I might have written the same thing. He goes, well, I can kind of see where he's coming from with that because I know him, and they're a little more lenient with the grading. So there's another benefit of having that relationship with your college instructors. And certainly other professionals, even if they're not in your career path. For example, if you want to be an accountant, then having a relationship with someone who's in human resources or a lawyer who doesn't even deal with tax law, I bet they know somebody though. And if something comes up in conversation or something, they're at a business meeting and they're like, yeah, we're short an accountant. Hey, I know a guy who just got his license and he's a CPA. And there you go. That opens up for you. So make sure you keep those networking opportunities open. So once you've identified a company or employee you'd like to work for through one of those methods, then you're going to have to complete an application and prepare and submit a resume. I'm going to focus mostly on the application today. We'll get to the resume later. Most employers require applicants to complete a job application, even if they do submit a resume and cover letter. And the simple reason is a job application is a legal document. It's saying that everything you're telling them about your experience is true and correct, and that they have a legal opportunity to let you go even after you've been hired if you misrepresented information on that application. So employers use job applications to ensure that they have consistent information for all candidates. In addition, by signing a job application or acknowledging online that the information in the application is accurate, the candidate is attesting to their job and educational history legally. And this means that you can be denied employment or fired in the future if you aren't truthful about your employment record. Before you complete a job application, either online or on person, it's important to have all the information you need to complete the application on hand. If some of these job applications online actually have a timer on them, because it's one way to prevent you from just like making up stuff, looking up stuff and copying and pasting and stuff like that. You can't eliminate it all, but you certainly can eliminate it to some extent by having a timer, because you have to know this stuff. And so if there's a timer, you don't have an opportunity to spend the time creating or going out and researching and making things up for the application. You either know it or you don't. Certainly if you do it by hand, which a lot of places are getting away from that anymore, to be honest, but if you did it by hand, and we see a lot of erasure marks and everything, how do I know you're not lying, that you're not cheating, and say, okay, I'm going to go out and change these things? So to know it beforehand, have it all written down, and then you're just copying it on there so you're not making mistakes on the application is actually pretty valuable. The most important rule to remember when applying for a job is to follow the directions. The job application is usually your first test in getting a job. I'll tell you, and you can ask Dylan Stillwell's mother about this, because she's in HR and we've had this conversation. She was glad I was teaching this. But basically, if you're going in for a job and you fill out an application and you don't follow the directions, then if I have a stack of 100 applications for an entry-level job and I'm an HR person, and it takes on average 2 minutes to go through each application, well, 2 minutes isn't a long time, but 200 minutes, that's almost 3 hours, over 3 hours of my day, an 8-hour workday for an entry-level job. Do you think an HR person really wants to spend that amount of time doing that? Probably not. So what do? They weed it out. Oh, didn't follow directions, and they whittle that down to maybe 50 applications now. And they have other ways to whittle it down too. But guess where those applications for the people who didn't follow directions, where do they go? They go in the circular file. And if you don't know what that is, that's the garbage can. That's how they weed people out. So it's very important to follow directions. If the employer tells you to apply in person, don't call. Be there in person. That if you call, well, you've already demonstrated you can't follow directions. Why would I hire you? If the job posting says to mail your resume, don't email it. When the job listing says apply via a form on the company website, don't email your application directly to human resources. There's nothing much more annoying to hiring managers than job seekers who don't follow the rules, because you're taking away my professional time. And trust me, I got a lot more things to do as an HR professional than try to fill an entry-level job. I've got to deal with other employees' insurance, their benefits, disciplinary things. I got a ton of stuff to do in my day, and I don't want to spend half a day dealing with just this one thing and your inability to follow directions. That's going to make sure you peed me off, that you're not considered. So if you're applying for a position in person, ask for a job application. So when you're in there, hi, I'm John Smith. I'm very interested in this position you had advertised. Is it possible for me to get a job application? and then take it home with you to complete. There's nothing worse than, someone looking for a job who's sitting there at a table and they're blurring the line between customer and job applicant. How do I know you're going to be serious about your job? Or are you going to be thinking you're entitled to certain things here as a customer, and so you're going to be kind of lazy? So don't blur that line, is basically what I'm saying. You can take it home, you can take your time filling it out so it will be neat and tidy as well as accurate when you return to drop it off. When you stop in to pick up or drop off a job application, be sure you're dressed appropriately, because you never know who you're going to meet, and that first impression is really important. You may end up speaking to the manager, and it's important to look professional just in case you get an on-the-spot interview. Some places, if you impress them particularly, you might get an interview right there. They'll sit you down and say, listen, let's have you come back at some point and we'll start your training or something like that, especially very much more entry-level jobs. Most professional jobs higher up, you're going to have a whole string of interviews and everything. It's not just going to be one. But if you make that great first impression, well, that's one hurdle you don't have to worry about now. You're on to the next one, and they've weeded out a lot of other people, and you're in that select crop now. So when you're applying for a job in person, business casual attire is usually appropriate. For gentlemen, that usually means a pair of slacks. You don't necessarily need to wear a tie, but a dress, button-down shirt, or a polo, something of that nature. It's always important to be neat and tidy and well-groomed, and to present a positive image to the employer to make that first impression. Don't wear jeans or shorts, tank tops, crop tops, anything especially low-cut shirts or pants, or too short skirts. Make sure your hair and fingernails are well-groomed. Wear moderate shoes. Don't wear spike heels, platforms, flip-flops, Crocs, or your favorite pair of old ratty sneakers. Dress neatly, conservatively, but also casually. It's not a formal thing yet. Avoid trendy clothes, jeans, or personal identity statements like a mohawk or a political t-shirt. I wouldn't wear your Make America Great Again shirt, Trump 2020, to an interview like this, because you don't know what their political views are. They may actually be offended by that. That's the last thing you want to do, is offend them if you want the job there. Now, I say that unless they are fitting to the job. If you're going to Spencer's to apply for a job, well, then having that mohawk and a political statement shirt, particularly if it's fairly liberal, might actually get you the job in those cases. So trendy is okay if the job is in a trendy clothing store. And I don't want to make any, public, judgmental statements about it, but typically hide tattoos, take out extra piercings, things like that, because you don't know who they're going to offend. And if you really want the job there, you're going to have to kind of look the part. Again, if you're applying for a job at a tattoo parlor, showing off your sleeve might be okay. But if you're applying for a job in a professional position, normally you're going to want to kind of hide that stuff. So remove piercings that may be objectionable and obvious to an employer, such as facial piercing, and keep tattoos covered unless these things seem fitting or even desirable at that place of employment. When you apply for jobs, bring a copy of your personal information, employment, and education history. Here's what you'll need to know. Schools and dates attended. Now that's from high school on. Don't worry about elementary school or where you went to preschool. The names and addresses of previous employers if you've worked before. The dates of employment for each employer, and you only need to know the month and the year. You don't necessarily need to know the exact day that you began there, especially if it was in the past. A list of 3 references and addresses for each reference. Now there are 2 different types of references that you'll have. There are personal references that can attest to your character, and there are professional references that can attest to your work ethic and knowledge on the job. And you're going to want, it depends on what type of job it is, but you're going to want 2 of one, 1 of the other, and normally it's 2 professional, 1 personal. Phone numbers for each reference. If it's a personal reference, use their home phone number. If it's a professional reference, use their business phone number. Don't give the home phone numbers for them. And you always want to include at least 1 of each type of reference. The third choice will be the one that reflects on you the best. And like I said, in most cases for a job application, that's going to be your professional one that you'll want. Your resume, if you have one, to attach to the job application. And your schedule. Know what days and hours you're available to work. I read a lot of HR publications and everything to look for these things. And there's nothing more annoying to HR people than they hire you because you said that you could work days Monday through Sunday. And then you get there and said, oh, I can only work nights on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. then what'd you write this on the application for? You basically lied to us, and you've got a big strike against you now, where they may even fire you on the spot because you lied on your job application, basically. Also, when you go to apply somewhere, bring a notepad. Keep track of where you've applied. If you're very serious about looking for a job, I watched a Dr. Phil episode once. I actually liked that show, where he recommended that if you're looking for a job, that should be your job. Spend 8 hours a day out there applying, looking for jobs. And if you're doing that, you might apply to 6, 7 places a day. In a week, that's 35 places. How do you keep track of everywhere you've applied to? And that's what the notebook is for, to write down these notes about where you've applied. Bring a pen, a black or blue pen, to complete job applications. There's just something psychological about ink on paper as opposed to pencil. If you bring a mechanical pencil or a regular pencil and you complete a job application, how do I know you're not just doing that because it's erasable and you can change information to make it say what you think I want it to say? So make sure you're using black or blue ink, and that's why you want to have that stuff on something separate, maybe in that notebook beforehand, so that you're not scribbling things out and changing things on there. You have it written down. And if you have one, a nice portfolio to hold all of your job application materials. And I didn't think about this today. I should have I'll try to maybe get one and bring it to you tomorrow. I've got a couple nice portfolios there in class, but basically they're leather or faux leather bound notebook things you open up, and you can have a legal pad on half of them. Usually has pockets for like business cards or something on the other half. And I've got a couple of these at school that I'll try to get a hold of and bring in here to show you, or when, if we return, I'll be able to show you. So those things can hold all of your job application materials, including extra copies of your resume and your information that you want to put on the application and things like that. So when you apply for a job in person, let's say you go in there and say, hey, I'm interested in a job. You may be asked to complete a paper application, very rare today. You might be sent to a hiring kiosk, which is usually a computer they have set up there for people to fill in the job application. That actually is also becoming very rare because most people could just do it from their phones now. So you don't need this big kiosk anymore. Walmart did used to have a hiring kiosk. I don't know if you would remember that or not, but they don't have that anymore. But anyway, you're going to complete an electronic version of a job application rather than a paper application form in most cases today, which is why when in my classroom class, I assign a job application assignment. It's actually online application now. So in either case, carefully read the instructions before applying for employment. Before you click the submit button or turn in your application, the company is going to regard applications that are submitted correctly and accurately in a much better light than those from candidates who don't follow the instructions. Matter of fact, in today's electronic environment, I told you those HR people are going to kind of weed through it and look for it. Most of those applications do not even get touched. A computer runs an algorithm and goes through them and looks for certain things, and they just toss out your application if you've made an error or you don't have certain keywords or things like that. And so a human might not ever even see your job application if you've made a mistake on it. So while you're applying for jobs in person, it's important to be prepared for a quick interview. You never know, which is why you want to dress appropriately when you're there. And it might take place as soon as you hand in your application. So be prepared to answer interview questions about your employment history and education. Know these things off the top of your head. Because if I ask you, okay, so when did you work at Smith & Jones? And you sit there and you go, I don't know you. How do I know the is nervousness, or are you lying that you never really worked there and you just, fibbed on your application to make yourself look better? I don't. So know these things off the top of your head and be able to say them with confidence, and make sure they match what you've written on the application as well. So you also might include questions about why you want to work at the company, why you're qualified for the job. We'll get to the whole interview process and all those questions later. See if you can get a business card from the store manager or hiring manager, and then follow up with a thank you note or an email message thanking them for considering your application afterwards. That actually makes you look a lot better. Sorry about that. Nice little message popped up on my screen here. So if you can get that business card, that gives you a place to send those things. If you were able to interview when you applied, make sure in your thank you letter you thank them for the interview as well. That does two things. One, this whole process is advertising your business. Your business is your labor, what you want to do. And so one of the key principles of advertising is keeping the name of your business out there fresh in their heads. And so when you send a thank you letter, not only are you showing politeness and professional courtesy, you're keeping your name in their head when they've gone through 100 applications and that you're the one who sent a thank you note. Boom, you're the one who's standing out now. So make sure you do that. Make sure after you fill out everything, go click back to the screens, review before you submit. Make sure you didn't make any stupid clerical errors. And I don't care how smart or intelligent you are, we can all make simple errors that make us look bad. So thoroughly read the instructions for applying for employment before you click the submit button or turn in your application. And the company will regard applications that are submitted correctly and accurately in a much better light than those from candidates who don't follow the instructions. Matter of fact, someone might not even see your application with computer algorithms today. So some companies won't accept incomplete applications, so you'll be rejected before you even apply if you don't submit your job application correctly. Be prepared to take a test. Some companies test applicants for employment to determine if the candidate is a good match for the jobs they're hiring for. Companies who conduct pre-employment tests, talent assessments, are seeking applicants that match their hiring criteria. They review advice on taking employment tests online. There's tons of advice on it. So you're prepared to respond to the employment-related questions you may be asked. Companies may also require drug tests for applicants for employment. Sometimes those drug tests can test back to 2-3 months. So if you're looking for a job and you're using, even if it's illegal use, it's better to be clean. I don't care, marijuana is legal, but if you're operating heavy machinery, I'm not going to hire you if you have evidence of marijuana or alcohol, because what if you're drunk or high on the job? That's going to be a problem. So make sure you're clean before you do these things. I've taken pre-employment tests. I've taken drug tests. Good news, I passed them all. I've taken personality tests. I've taken basic math tests. I've taken all kinds of tests, ethics tests, to make sure that I'm a match for that job, that particular person that they're looking for. It's a lot cheaper for a company to do a lot of stuff beforehand to select an employee than it is to fire them after the fact. And so they're going to invest a lot of money up front on this, and that's why the interview process is difficult, basically. And just complete all requested information on the form. Don't leave anything blank. If it doesn't apply to you, for example, on the application, if they say, are you under age 16? Or if you're under age 16, check here. Don't leave it blank if at all possible. Put non-applicable, N\A, capital N\A, to recognize that, okay, I saw it, it doesn't apply to me. Because if I'm looking at your application, did you skip it on a mistake? Was it an accident, or it didn't apply to you? I don't know. Safer to put NA. Write clearly and neatly. I got to be able to read what you're writing. Otherwise, what's the point? And use blue or black ink, I already talked about. Check for spelling and grammatical errors. There is nothing worse. I remember, I seen someone who wrote to one of my veterans Facebook pages, said, I am still a student, Steal, S-T-E-A-L. What can I do to get in the military? It's like, oh my God, learn to communicate and write properly would be one of the first things, because steal is not a word. Learn the difference between their, T-H-E-Y, apostrophe R-E, their, T-H-E-I-R, and their, T-H-E-R-E. That's a huge error I see. These are just simple things that I don't know you. Everything I know about you is written right there. And if I see this consistent error, I think you're an idiot, to be honest. I don't know. And so what am I going to do when I'm trying to whittle down 100 applicants to 10? I'm just throwing yours away because this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know how to communicate. You may be the best person qualified for the job, but everything I know about you is what's written right there. And what's written right there indicates you don't know basic English. List your most recent job first. Same with your education when completing the employment information. If you're a lawyer and you've worked 10 years at a law firm, I don't want to see the first thing listed you worked at McDonald's when you were 16, because that right there, oh my God, this guy works at McDonald's, and I'm just going to throw it away. Again, I'm not spending a lot of time looking at these applications. So list your most recent work first, that's especially the work that's most relevant to the job. And same with your education. I don't want to see that you went to, North School, first up there, because it's like, oh my God, this kid doesn't even have a junior high education. Garbage. You know, if this is a professional job, you need college or you need training school to do, that's what I want to see first, that you did that. So list the most recent first. Your references don't necessarily have to be professional. If you have volunteered, you can use members of the organizations that you've helped, or if you're a student, use your teachers. In all cases, ask for permission though prior to using them for a reference, because here's what will happen. You list me as a reference, they're going to call, yes, John Smith has listed you as a rep. John Smith. I have hundreds of students over the past years. I'm not going to, John Smith. Oh yeah, John. Now, did I hesitate like that because I didn't remember John Smith? And if I didn't, why would he list me as a reference? Or did I hesitate like that because John Smith just not, why would he want a job like that? He sucks. And, you know, they don't know. They're judging a lot of things based on my tone of my voice and things like that. So make sure that you've asked beforehand so I'm ready for the call at least. And don't forget to sign your application. A very important thing. If you don't sign it, it's no longer legally binding, and that computer will just chuck it. When cold calling or applying for a job that's not advertised, always drop off a resume or fill out an application during off-peak hours. If it's a restaurant you're applying to this summer for a high school job, don't go in there during the lunch rush and apply, because they're busy with business at that time. Go in maybe 3 o'clock and ask for an application. Never show up during the busiest time of the day or just before closing. This is a surefire way to not get an interview, because already you've demonstrated you don't understand business, or their business at least. If answering an advertised position, only show up during the time stated in the ad. If no times are specified, the same rules apply as in a cold call. Never show up at the busiest time of day or just before closing. Politely approach the first available employee. Ask if they're hiring. Never interrupt a conversation. Wait patiently until you're acknowledged. Again, don't interrupt business. They're conducting business, and you have to understand that's what they're there for. That's what you'll be there for if you're hired. So demonstrate your knowledge of that right off the bat. If you speak to anybody but a manager and are told they're not hiring, ask if you can leave a resume anyway, and be sure to get the manager's name and the next time they'll be working. And then stop by a second time when you know the manager will be available. Let's face it, a lot of entry-level positions, maybe they want their buddy to get hired, and so you leave your stuff, they toss it in the garbage. And so you want to make sure to come back that second time and talk to the manager himself to make sure he got those things. Follow up in person a few days after you drop off an application or resume. Don't call constantly, did you get this, did you get this? Because then they'll start taking it as irritation. But if you follow up consistently a few times after the fact, within reason, based on what they've told you, the context, that's going to demonstrate some interest in the position. So make sure you follow up when you know the manager will be there. When you stop in, simply restate your interest in the job. Let the manager know that you hope they'll keep you in mind when there's an opening. And always be polite, speak clearly, don't stay too long, and again, interfere with business. For example, if you just dropped off a resume at a video gaming store, don't stick around to do some shopping, because again, you're blurring the line between customer and employee. And I don't know if I hire you, are you just going to be playing the games all day, or are you actually going to be working? If you're applying for a position at a large company, call first to see if there are openings, or visit the customer service center or human resources office and ask if you can complete an application for employment. At a smaller employer, ask for the manager. If applying for a job you've heard about from word of mouth or through a friend, make sure to mention how you heard about the job when dropping off your resume. Ask the person who told you about the position for the name of the manager or the person doing the hiring, and ask specifically for this individual. Also find out the best time to drop off a resume from them if you can. If the person who's referring you is a great employee, it's great to name drop. But if this person is drugged out and never shows up to work and is constantly calling off sick, I wouldn't go in and apply for a job and say, this guy told me to, because now what am I going to think about you as an employee? I'm not going to want you. I might not be able to fire this guy, but I can certainly save a lot of money by not hiring one of his buddies who's probably going to be just like him. Have a resume ready and attach it to any application form you're asked to fill out. Keep your resumes neatly in a folder. Don't crumple it up. Don't get it all folded and wrinkled, because then that's an indication of the kind of